Greetings, amigops, and top teners everywhere. This is Mike from Top 10 with Kyle and Mike. I am joined this week, as I am every week, by our bepoloed, behaircutted, very handsome co-host Kyle. Now don't get confused. We are also joined by friend of the pod, Kyle, who we will be referring to as something I haven't quite decided yet. Maybe Kyle, my co-host, can answer that when we get to him. So Kyle and Kyle have a topic that they will be discussing. Now Kyle doesn't know what that topic is, but Kyle does. We will discuss that topic for about an hour. Once Kyle and I have decided what the final list is after we've debated it vigorously, Kyle and I will have created a top 10 list. Confused? So am I. So, gentlemen, what are we talking about this evening?
Well, thank you, Mike. I am thoroughly confused about what Kyle I am, that's for sure.
All right, so for some context, first of all, welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you.
So for context, wife of the pod Allegius, who you know and love, she works with Kyle, and they've worked together for the past 4 years or so, and we had the same amount of confusion the first time we all tried to hang out together. And so the convention that we have used, and I think we've used it fairly effectively, is that I am known as, at the time I was known as fiance Kyle, and Kyle from work.
Yes. Well, to be fair, you were boyfriend Kyle.
That's right, I was boyfriend Kyle for some time.
Yeah, It wasn't diplomatic enough for
because
quite some time.
Kyle from work, you were there the moment boyfriend Kyle became fiance Kyle.
That's right.
Yes.
So I was,
And when fiance Kyle became husband Kyle.
that's true.
That is true, yeah.
So I was boyfriend Kyle, BFK, then I became fiance Kyle. And Kyle has always been Kyle from work, KFW.
Always.
KF Dubs,
Yeah.
sometimes we call you.
Okay, yeah.
So if you need to address one of us specifically, Mike, it's probably best to refer to this Kyle as Kyle from work, and you can refer to me as douchebag Kyle or something.
Okay, I'll just call you boyfriend Kyle. That works for me.
That's probably easiest.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that
Okay.
seems like the most expedient thing.
I think of you as boyfriend Kyle, just so you know.
Yeah. Sometimes you just can't shake the whole.
Yeah. No, I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, not boyfriend Kyle. This is your boyfriend. Okay. All right.
Okay. So with the introductions out of the way, I'm excited because neither of us has any idea what we are about to talk about. So enlighten us, KFW. What are we discussing today?
So, I was going on a nice little top 10 binge a few weeks ago, and I was having a little crisis of my own, thinking about what my top 10 would be. So I went through what am I up to these days, what am I passionate about, and I think outside of work, most people know me for a few things. Dabbling into the HGTV house flipping game. What else?
Ooh.
A new interest in running, and I think probably the most prominent characteristic is my travel resume.
Aha.
Oh, I like a good travel resume.
And not just any travel. I like to think that I specialize, especially in the last 5 years, on traveling on a budget, which is also adventure oriented. So I do a lot of solo traveling to odd parts of the world.
You are the king of adventures. We just will describe to me trips that you've gone on or are currently on. I'm like, I would never be able to do some of the trips that you go on. And I'm sure we'll discuss them at length here. I'm very excited. So is the list just like top 10 exciting adventure-oriented trips you've been on?
Absolutely not. This is not about me. This is actually about you, and more importantly, the listeners.
Aha.
So very frequently after I go on a trip, somebody's like, I would never know how to do that. I would never have the courage to do that. I would whatever it is. Well, this list is my top 10 list of tangible tips or concepts that you could take with you on your next adventure.
Adventure trips.
Adventure trips.
Or adventure tips. Adventure trip tips.
Beautiful.
Adventure tips for adventure trips.
Beautiful. Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome.
So I want to go on record early in this podcast as saying people like you who are really adventurous and willing to go on trips alone or willing to go on trips to places that they're unfamiliar with, that can overcome so many personality shortcomings in my book.
Yeah, that's why
because I think that is such a cool thing that, like, you could really hate recycling and I'd be pretty into you overall. Cause I just think that's such a neat and brave quality. Huge fan, and I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on how to do this best.
What's especially cool about Kyle here is that you don't need, it's not like you do this to overcome personality shortcomings. Like, you're actually an extremely likable person already, so it's a compounding effect. So,
yeah, this is on top of how much he likes to recycle.
KFW, You're making me blush right now. You gotta stop.
This is gonna be great. I like this one a lot.
So, there's going to be a lot of vigorous debate on this one because some of them are concepts, some of them are actual hardcore tips, like life hacks.
This is perfect. Mixing and matching and being inconsistent with your rules. Yep. You are a perfect fit.
Clearly, you have been listening to the podcast. Mm-hmm. There's probably some grouped items on your list.
There's a few groups.
Yeah. Okay.
My not tops and my honorable mentions are probably far too long, and we'll go right through them.
You are going to fit right in.
Yep.
Now, are you going to take a really long time to get through this list? Because
I'm going to try to.
If so, that's perfect.
It seems like you're definitely, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, so doing a really good job applying for backup Kyle. Like, if for some reason I can't be on a pod and we have to find another Kyle quick,
right?
Your resume is sterling and we haven't even started the list.
Oh my goodness! All right, I'm just fully smitten right now.
All right. Well, I think probably the best place to start is number 10. What'd you have there?
Number 10. There's going to be some overlap, but I think this is a standalone 10 on its own. And that is to buy the cheapest flight that you possibly can in general. Okay? And more importantly, be the last individual to board that plane. That way you can scout out the entire plane, minus first class, and see what's open. It doesn't matter if you're in 32F next to the bathroom. Guess what? You're the last person on the plane. You got an aisle row exit seat right there for you. Boom. No one asks any questions. That's number 10.
So you're saying so you're saying target the bathroom seat?
No, I'm saying be the last person on because on a non-full flight,
I see.
The last seats to be filled are the more expensive ones, and you can plop right down in them, and no one's going to ask any questions.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a fantastic tip.
Also, a bonus to this tip is that you get to be in the terminal for an extra 20 minutes as opposed to be trading sweat with your neighbor.
There's nothing worse than jostling in line for, like, no reason, but everyone feels compelled to.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So do you find that when I feel like a lot of these trips for you are international.
Yeah.
I don't know if that has something to do with it. Do you find that on your adventures, you are more likely to come across a flight that hasn't been completely sold out? Because I feel like, in my experience, oftentimes flying for work, there aren't empty seats. Like, do you find that more commonly on your trips you're finding flights that haven't been booked entirely?
Okay, so to be fair, I use this trick very often domestically. I travel a decent amount domestically, just to the East Coast, grew up in the East Coast. But internationally, it's even better because you can play like the I don't speak your language card. And I only speak American.
That's so good.
Yeah, that's true.
Great secret.
Yeah. So you just gotta be really polite to like the people at the desk and just kind of play dumb. And what's the worst that can happen? Nothing's
Right. What are they going to do?
What are they going to do?
Not let you on the flight?
Right. You're already on the flight. Be like, sir, where's your ticket? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't, I don't know your language. That's it. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the first piece of this, which was buy the cheapest flight. Mm-hmm. So I run into this situation often, which I'm sure is familiar to other travelers, which is I'm looking to go somewhere for a weekend, say. And I'm planning not to take any days off of work, or I'm just planning to take Friday off, whatever the case is. I kind of get backed into a flight that is just going to be more expensive because it's like a 5 p.m. flight or something. How do you deal with that? Like, will you say this flight is either $180 if I leave at 7 a.m. a day early, or it's $350 if I leave at the prime time. Like, what's your decision point there?
I know the battles to pick, so I'll make a 3-day weekend out of what it should be a 2-day weekend if I'm going to save $150 on a flight. Otherwise, I'm going to put my head down and scooch out of there at 1. But it's almost certainly going to be the cheapest flight. Maybe it'll be a $30 premium, but it's, that's the part of being a 20-something millennial in domestic world. So.
Right.
Okay. That's good to know. You're hovering towards the low end of the price spectrum, even if it requires a little bit of dancing.
Yeah. Dance.
I feel like this kind of lines up really well with what I know of your, like we've already discussed, your kind of adventurous spirit. Cause I feel like the way you view it is it's not an inconvenience to you. It just means, like, in that example, you have an extra day to get up to whatever you're going to get up to.
Oh, exactly.
And so and I also feel like you're the type that just is like, well, fuck it, I'll do a red eye, and you don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
The older I get, the less I have that spirit. But, I've definitely had plenty of those fuck it moments. So I've pitched a tent in the middle of Boston Logan Airport from midnight until 4 a.m.
Yeah, there's some attractive people there.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
sorry. Sorry.
Oh, jeez.
I get it.
Thanks, Kyle. Boner jokes.
You've literally pitched a tent at Logan? Like an actual
No,
tent?
I pitched it. Yeah. Seriously. Right outside TSA.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
That
was a first.
That feels like something you would get in trouble with TSA for, but when they got you in trouble, they wouldn't know why.
Yeah.
They'd be like, you can't do that. And you'd be like, why? And they'd be like, well, you can't do that.
That happens a lot.
You're like, well, why?
Like, there's a lot of people spending the night here, right? That's not,
yeah. I had the penthouse situation. I felt amazing the next morning.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That is just awesome.
Put your shoes
That's
out.
an excellent zipper sound effect.
Wow. Wow, we're up to a hot start.
Oh, boy.
Incredible. Great tip.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Number 9. Very practical suggestion here. Get a Visa, or a Visa Sapphire, Amex, something like that has these perks, that may have travel insurance. So that can just tick off a few other things that other people may be concerned about. It also has no foreign transaction fees. Huge.
That's
huge.
If you take one international trip a year,
Yeah.
you can probably offset the cost of an annual fee for a credit card just in the international piece.
Yeah.
That's the card you mentioned, the Sapphire, is the one we've used, and
Right.
it's paid for itself over.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah. I noticed the effect of this strongly in my last trip to Costa Rica. It was pretty amazing first time traveling with a Sapphire. So highly recommend that.
That's a really good one.
I like this tip a lot. This tip served me very well because I studied abroad in London, and at the time we were still on the swipe in the States, but they had already gone to the chip in Europe, or at least in the UK. I think most of Europe was on the chip, and I got a credit card that had some rewards and had no foreign transaction fees and all that stuff, and I kept going to the same grocery store, and I would put the chip in and pull it right out because I didn't realize you had to leave it in, and none of the people attending the checkout spoke English, and I was too timid to ask what the hell was going on, so they would just watch me poke the chip in and pull the chip right out every single day. So I wasted so much time going to the ATM to get pounds, get pound notes, because I was afraid to pay with my card. So I would add as sort of an addendum to this, get a card, learn the rules, and figure out how to actually use it.
I would have never thought to suggest that with a credit card.
Yeah.
But that's why we're a team.
It's more complicated than you think.
That's a good one. I mean, and I feel like what's your strategy for dealing in cash? Because when we were on our honeymoon, we ended up paying the credit card can help you in a lot of scenarios. Obviously, if you're not paying with cash, we probably spent a not insignificant amount on ATM fees to pull cash. Mm-hmm. Do you get your cash ahead of time, or is that higher up on this list and I'm spoiling it, or what's the deal with cash for you?
Wow, you just blew my mind. No, I used to worry about crap like that, no, not at all now. It's all at ATMs. I think there's a small percentage when you pull cash out.
Yeah.
It's always a fun game to play towards the end of your trip, because I'll probably make like 4 ATM runs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I certainly am not the person that's bringing $1,000 like Americanized cash abroad. I've been in that situation as Burma before, not a robbery, out of something else actually, which we'll get into.
Oh boy.
But yeah, it's always ATMs, and yeah, it's just little bits at a time. Because it's
well, with the ATMs, you can take a look. A lot of banks, especially the bigger international banks, will have partnerships. So I have Bank of America, and for example, when you're in the UK, Barclays is their partner. I think it's maybe Unicredit in Italy. I forget what there's a couple banks across the Eurozone that partner with Bank of America, where if I go to one of their ATMs, I don't pay a fee.
Nice.
That's clutch.
Well, I need to get that list from you.
Yeah.
Because that's not something I accept.
Yeah, so check it out, because it's a big help.
Okay.
Nice. Wunderbar.
Mm-hmm.
What about number 8?
All right, number 8 is like a fundamental shift in travel mentality. So this is one of these overarching concepts that I think is highly important. It's going to kind of be the bedrock for a few of these other toppers. Moving on.
All right, so this is where we kind of not jump the shark, but now we're kind of entering the KFW zone.
This is KFW.
Okay.
But the important thing about this is it's not far-fetched enough where this is about KFW. This is, again, it's about you. These are simple decisions you can make to come on the ride, to experience it for yourself.
I can already feel that this was crafted with us in mind. This isn't about you. This is about a service you're rendering for us.
I want to make sure my tone is coming across correctly. When I say the KFW zone, I mean it in only the highest regard. I'm excited to be presented the opportunity to think more like you on this topic, because I'm in awe of your traveling ability. So, just so we're clear.
Bring us
onto your level. Yeah. Let her rip. What do you got?
I'm regretful of your mindset already.
All right.
I appreciate it, and I'm fearful for you at the same time. So, okay, number 8. Now, the concept is hostels. You got to stay at a hostel. Now, where the intricacy comes in here is staying in a private room with a shared bathroom, or maybe a private ensuite room. So essentially, it's a hotel. But really, the idea is finding a hotel, hostel, whatever the name is, that has this social community feel to it. So I almost exclusively book my accommodations off hostelworld.com, which maybe should be number 8, hostelworld.com.
Hostelworld.com?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, this is a really important part about that, is that the star rating, which we all have known to come in love with the Ubers of the world and Yelps, etc., doesn't really mean anything at hostelworld.com. Okay. That's very important.
But as goofy, I'm laughing, but it requires you to kind of abandon this 4 stars out of 5 mentality that we have. It's actually a big leap to make.
Huge.
Because we're so used to having everything.
This is great institutional knowledge. This is not the kind of thing that can be glossed over. That's important to know.
Very important. And we can go on this whole Yelp star rating thing and how the whole star rating system is completely rigged, but that's a different podcast. But anyway, so the reason why
KFW's conspiracy theories.
So the reason why stars don't matter on hostelworld.com is because everyone's individual experience in travel and life is individualized. So if you're somebody that's extremely social, solo, looking for, on a quick hitter trip, maybe you want a party type experience, right? Where I've been to hostels where people are pouring shots down your throat from the staff, after you check in, they'll give you a shot. Mm-hmm. I've been to other ones, and those have gotten 2.5 stars. Right? And then somebody will be bashing it. Oh, the bathrooms are gross or whatever. And you get there and it's not that bad. Or maybe you're in that mindset and you get a 5-star place where no one even makes eye contact with each other. Or vice versa, right? So you get the stars don't mean anything. You got to really read the reviews and dive into it.
Well, it's important. You already said it. It's very individualized, because to someone that's looking to just kind of check in and spend the night there and get well rested for their next day, that party mentality that you mentioned is super negative.
Right.
But if you're trying to meet people and have a good time without necessarily having to go anywhere, that's a huge plus.
Right.
So I think this is pretty common knowledge. Read comments because they explain the context of a review.
Sure.
But that's interesting. When we were when we were studying abroad, we stayed in a lot of hostels, and they range in quality pretty dramatically.
Oh yeah, tremendously.
But in a best case scenario, or even I would say like a standard scenario, more times than not, it was cool to be able to have a communal space with other people that were doing the same things that we were.
Yeah.
Which was, and it like added to our trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is right on. I can't let a hostel conversation pass without giving the very brief version of my story about the nude man in the first hostel I ever stayed in. Shared room, just nude, just like right down to the skin, walking around, 40-year-old guy alone in the room, just
alone,
nude.
No one was strong.
So that is not a hostel in Edinburgh that I will be staying in again. But I totally agree, because I think, I feel like part of the mentality that you're getting at here is the, like, un-American in Paris mentality. The I'm studying abroad and this is my shot to see stuff I'm not seeing later in life mentality. You're saying I'm allocating as much of my resources to the adventure portion of this as I can possibly manage, which means I'm going to spend a little less on accommodations, and I'm going to seek accommodations where I'm meeting fellow adventurers. Like, I love that.
That's what it's all about.
It's really cool. And like, it's kind of like Mousetrap theory, Mike, where if you're staying in a hostel,
yes, totally,
you probably have something in common with other people staying there because they're in a hostel. Yeah. Like when we did Erin and her boyfriend Mike, we did a bike ride 2 summers ago, and we stayed in hostels the whole way.
Sure.
And apparently we were in the off-peak because most of them were empty.
Okay.
But the people that we ended up hanging out with, like we had biked all day, and then we got to a hostel, and we just ended up chilling with these people that were doing the same bike ride we were.
Nice.
And it really enhanced our experience.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
So it's a good point. You're likely to find people with similar interests in hostels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. So
very supportive of this one.
As an avid listener of the podcast, Kyle, I suspect you know what happens now.
I have an inkling.
Yeah.
That there's some not toppers here.
Oh yeah.
I feel like an old man saying toppers, but I'm going to go with it.
Toppers. We should get some not top 3 toppers and like get not top 3 branded hats that we put on for the not top 3 segment.
Oh, you know,
I'm basically fine with the idea of having a hat that I just pop on.
Just for the not top 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get started, do you want to formally request the stank from Kevin for us?
I would. And it's unfortunate Kevin couldn't make it tonight. But in his absence, Kevin, if you're out there, play that stanky music.
Kevin, one of your stankiest renditions yet. Thank you so much. Wonderful music and excellent cueing from KFW.
Just an all-star performance all the way around from Kevin and Kyle.
Yeah, really good stuff.
All right. So, what did you do for the not top 3? Just like things not to do while adventuring, or how did this shake out for you?
In general, it's like, I think it's trying to accomplish this paradigm shift in traveling. So what a normal traveler would think is an essential, I'm saying, nah.
So you're debunking travel myths.
Debunking travel myths.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
All right.
I love the word debunk.
Yeah.
So, number 1, and this is going to be debate. I have a feeling.
All right, here we go.
International cell service. Unless there's like a super good reason to be fully connected, you got to unplug, and you got to be okay with just being out on your own and not having any way in that exact moment to get in touch with everyone. There's plenty of apps and things like that, like WhatsApp, where you can connect through Wi-Fi and tell people that you love that you're okay every day or two. But when it comes to Snapchat, Instagram, all that stuff, there's no place for that.
I love this tip. Mike, it seems like you're in the same boat.
I couldn't agree with this tip anymore. I love unplugging. I'm not sure if I do it enough, but I love it. And traveling, the very idea of looking at my phone while I'm traveling is it's disgusting. I don't peek at my phone. I have no interest.
I will say that on our international trips, we've never had a roaming plan, and it's worked out really well for us because you can catch up with what you need to, like at night in a hostel, in a hotel with Wi-Fi.
Right.
But during the day, it's really fun and refreshing to kind of not have that. And one thing that and I don't know if this is true everywhere, but like when we've been to a lot of places that are well populated, like, Rome, Florence, and New Zealand, Australia, where the Google Maps app will actually still show your location. You can't like search a route.
Okay.
And you can't like look up places to go.
Sure.
But it will show you where you are on the map, and you can kind of use it as, it kind of functions at that point like a paper map.
Sure, yeah.
So that is useful. But apart from that, it's cool to go around and kind of do stuff on your own and maybe carry a book with you or something.
Go figure. Maybe a hard copy. Wow.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Wow. All right. Number 2. It's kind of a little mini grouping, and this is going to be controversial. Insurance. Airline insurance and travel insurance.
You're anti-insurance?
I got no, and I'm pretty sure that there's this recording is going to end up in court, probably 10 years from now. But I'm gonna double down on this one.
What's the line in Meet the Parents or is it Meet the Parents when everything's going right for him and they're like, "Do you want flight insurance?" And he's like, "No, thank you." And the woman's like, "Good, it's a scam."
So, I mean, the thing is, I've been in a lot of situations where maybe travel insurance would come into play, but it's not like that insurance company's going to be writing you the check in a moment. So I've never had to pay out, in a serious situation or anything like that, but I get the downside why people are they freak out about it.
Yeah, I'm so on board with this tip or this debunking because as somebody who's sort of professionally adjacent to the insurance industry, I know that Allianz, who sells almost all of these policies, so they sell like travel insurance, they sell ticket insurance for sporting events or plays, they are just printing money on this. And more importantly than that, the thing that I always get concerned about when I get presented with these insurance situations, including when they give you that really high pressure, like, "Are you sure you want to put your $300 at risk?"
Spirit
message.
Yeah, 30 cents, but
it's ridiculous. But the thing is, almost none of the stuff I would want covered is ever covered by this.
Yeah,
right.
Like this scenario where I'm just like, this isn't gonna work. I gotta change my plans. Like,
yeah,
they're not covering that.
Well said. Well said. Yeah.
That's
totally
a good point.
Save your money. Like, honestly, just put it in the bank or whatever, or just write it off as a loss. Like, I've had to, rebook flights and it's cost me a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, it's like,
you're probably ahead.
I'm way ahead.
Yeah.
Way ahead compared to travel insurance and all that stuff. So.
Okay.
I had more than 3, but I'm going to skip I think number 3 and final here. I'm going to say in general concept, expensive experiences. So, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't splurge. You should know when to splurge, but that doesn't mean you need to spend money to have fun and have these great experiences. So it's just kind of a big concept.
So you don't necessarily need to spend a lot to have a good experience.
Especially traveling. People are like, "Oh, I'm going to go and save up for this amazing travel experience." Like, no, I've had some pretty rock star experiences on, like $20 a day sometimes.
Whoa.
When I was in Thailand, I was sleeping for like $10 a night. I could get like a $5 massage and I could feed myself for like $5 a day. I mean, I didn't do that consistently, but like there was a few days where I was able to literally live for $20 a day with an hour long massage.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So
This really does feel like just this particular topic feels like our friend Alex is pretty notably a non-listener of this podcast.
Shots fired.
But he would really identify with this because, and I'm going to misrepresent the dollar figures. It doesn't matter because the spirit of the story is accurate. It is our it's our junior year of college. Spring break is approaching. We're all talking about what our plans are. Kyle, so far so good, right?
Yep.
And Alex says, I might do this, I might do that, I might do this, I might do that. Okay, nothing. It's like the week before. Oh, I'm going to Costa Rica. Pardon? Yes, I'm going to Costa Rica. That's my spring break. Cool, awesome, Alex, that's great. Have you done any research? No. Do you have any of the local currency? No. Do you know anything about anything? No. Okay.
He sounds like me.
Whatever. Come back from spring break. Fully expecting that Alex is dead. He gets back. We say, hey, how was the trip? Oh, it was great, man. We're like, oh, did you, how did you do with the money? He's like, well, I only brought $100, but, it was plenty. He's like, the only problem was, you wouldn't believe it, the toilet paper was so expensive. And so, he like you would find the $5 massage, the $1 pupusa. Like, he is not a guy who's gonna get sucked. It's some sort of food.
Yeah,
like he's not gonna get. Yeah, he does. He always finds the $1 pupusa. But he is not the kind of guy to get tricked into overspending.
It can be done. I'm on the right trip, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like, you gave a good example of Thailand, and, like, we were able to do something pretty similar when we were in Bali.
Yeah.
But I think this also, like, translates well to, like, even if you're on a bigger trip, like, to a more, like, a generally more expensive location, you can still do stuff that isn't necessarily going to break the bank.
For sure.
If you're willing to find those things, right?
Yeah.
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 Awesome.
Okay.
Be gone, debunked myths.
All right, on to number 7.
Let's do it.
Number 7 is plainly research the practicals. And underneath the practicals, I consider that visa laws, vaccinations, which I have a caveat for. You really need to weigh the risk versus the cost, because there's some vaccinations out there that cost like $200, or that may be slight hyperbole. But I remember, like, distinctly my first trip, I think I paid like $150 for like yellow fever vaccine or something. At the end of the day, granted I don't have yellow fever now, but is it the vaccine's credit or is it not?
Yeah.
Only time will.
Now let's just get off on the right foot with this so that we don't get in trouble out there. We are not, and I'll speak for myself, I don't think we're anti-vaxxers on this podcast.
Vaccinate your children.
Vaccinate your children.
We are just cheap vaxxers. We're cheap
vaxxers.
Well, Kyle did say you want to weigh the risk versus the cost. And I think in a lot of cases, especially domestically, it's well worth vaccinating your kids, considering the risk and the
cost. If somebody tries to sell you like a dengue fever vaccination for going to North Carolina, though, like don't get it.
Like, I had to learn that the hard way.
Or do if you want to. I'm not dispensing
but
that
now you're good with dengue.
I'm good. Yeah.
Interesting.
Let me just run through a few more other things, because each one of these guys are actually really, really important to research. You got to research crime. This is something you don't think of, but equally as important when you start going on these longer, more foreign trips. Bribery expectations.
Oh my god!
Oh,
seriously,
good one.
Seriously, I was in, again, I don't mean to keep bringing up Thailand, but I was in Thailand and I landed from China to Thailand, and it was like 3 a.m. and I was like half asleep, and these Thai like TSA type people ushered me into like where they stamped the passports, and they started asking for money. Like, so I could, but I guess it was just to skip the line. So I gave him, just kind of gave him like $1 or something like that, whatever I had. But like, that's the custom overall there. So, gotta be careful. For good and for bad, Yeah.
That's a good tip because I just feel like that doesn't show up in a travel book or like a quick Google. Like you kind of have to intentionally think about that, and maybe you don't think about that unless it's happened to you before. Mm-hmm. So now we've got the benefit of your experience to guide our experiences.
Mm-hmm. Well, like in some other countries, they'll go unnamed. Like people have been pulled over and basically said you're speeding or something like that, with the expectation of like getting a 20. Otherwise, you're going to court. Blah blah blah. So that happens. This is a big one. Scams. You should know this, like the top 5 scams in the country that you're going to, because you probably will be targeted.
Yep.
Customs, just in general. Taxi rates. Again, that kind of goes with scams. Taxi drivers will take advantage of foreigners. In general, laws, drugs. I'm not into drugs. Most people that probably listen to the podcast are not into drugs, but you may, be in the vicinity once in a while. And if a country like Cuba, for instance, there was drugs that were presented to me, I freaked out and got out of there because that was a big deal. What else? American sentiment.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh.
And along the same lines is if you need to be delicate about it, maybe consider telling locals you're from Canada and have like a Canadian flag patch on your. Seriously,
this is one that I've heard, and we have a friend at work who's a really experienced international traveler, and her husband will oftentimes pass as Canadians for this reason, and it really affects the way that you're treated internationally.
Yeah. Yep. So that's what I got for research the practicals, number 7.
Those are great sub notes.
Yeah, to me that's like all of those are kind of tangentially related to safety. Like be safe and understand what you're getting into when you travel.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing about adventure travel is there is an element of risk and unfamiliarity that is inherent to that. So, there's millions of American tourists who go to Italy and Paris, or, go to Italy and France and the UK every year. There are fewer who go to Thailand, who go to South Africa, who go to Venezuela, wherever. It's important that you understand the risks and the customs. Not so much that you avoid them. It's clearly you've had great experiences not avoiding those things, but just understanding them.
Right.
And not necessarily fearing them, but being aware of them. Because a lot of those situations you presented are easily navigated as long as you're prepared for it, right?
For sure. Yeah. And there's plenty of people that try to scam you, but as you kind of just laugh it off in the moment as opposed to being a victim to it. Or, so any one of those can turn sideways. And if you just have something in the back of your head, it's going to help your experience so much more. You won't have to worry about it. You won't have to be paranoid about it. Because imagine if you don't do any research and you're a new adventure traveler, or that it's going to freak you out.
I can tell you that I would be freaked out in a scenario like that.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that's what I got. Research the practicals.
I like it.
7, safety. Number 6, bring a journal or write a digital journal.
Oh,
and it's also a great thing to do during downtime, I would say. Just like if you're, in these long trips, it's great.
This is one that it seemed like there's just no reason that I couldn't have been doing this, but I just don't, and I always regret it. It's such a great tip because you always think I'll remember, and and I'm always the kind of person that doesn't love to take pictures because I really like experiencing things in the moment.
Sure,
but
a journal would be a great option. Then.
But there's a great way to. I feel like that's a great kind of way to balance it because it also probably captures a lot more of how you were feeling at the time.
And
that's really important.
Yeah.
What a great tip. Yeah. Do you do this, Mike?
I don't, and it seems foolish because I do like to write. I want to write more, and traveling is some of the most fruitful sort of idea generation you can have. It's tough for me to think about how to write about the cat scratching at the scratching post, but it would be really easy to write about seeing something new at the Trevi Fountain. And even if it turns out, as I suspect, that I'm not a very good writer, I'll remember stuff much more clearly later.
For sure,
that's, I think the real value is even if I read it years later, I'm like, ugh, that anecdote was not very interesting. At least I'm like, oh man, I don't have to try to guess what we were doing at the Trevi Fountain, I'll remember because it'll be written.
Yeah.
Do you have like a journal that you take with you to each new place you go, or do you have like a different one for each trip, or how do you do it?
It's actually mostly off the phone. And then I save it to Google Drive.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a physical book.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah, it's quicker. It's just something you're always gonna have with you. And
It's very sophisticated.
Yeah.
Have you ever blogged or anything like that?
I'm actually writing my first book right now. Not first book. I'm writing a book right now.
Oh.
And the lead in to the last few pages of the first chapter, leading into the rest of the book, is a pretty interesting travel story, to say. And you may know the particular one that may or may not include Colombia in the jungle.
I don't know this story. This is an incredible tease.
Wow. Well, I don't know if we're going to have time to do the full story.
Well, no, you can't give away your book content.
Yeah. But that is in the works, yes.
Oh, all right.
Yes. And the book's not necessarily about travel, but it's the lead into who I am as a person, some of my experiences, and how I dove into some other aspects of my life.
Well, I'm very interested in that. And
Wow.
because I feel like I'd love to get your perspective on these trips, like, as you are on them.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I'm getting all jacked up right now. Cool. Oh boy. Gotta get the heart rate down now.
Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Number 5, whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. Number 5. Lonely Planet. I see some Lonely Planets right here. Just speak of the devil.
We are such big Lonely Planet fans, and I'll let you talk about it, but I'm pretty sure that the reason we're into it is from you in the first place. So,
oh wow,
go ahead.
I'm feeling foolish. Talk to me.
Lonely Planet is like a travel encyclopedia with inside travel tips attached for a particular country, or even more specifically, like a region of a country.
So you can see right there, we have London specifically.
Right, yeah.
We have Florence in Tuscany, which is more of a region.
Yeah.
We had one for Rome.
Wow.
And we had another one for like Salerno and the Amalfi Coast. They are spectacular. And piggybacking on that previous tip, kind of, you said unplug. I said, if you have your phone with you, you can still see where you are on Google Maps.
Yeah.
These books will have a list of restaurants and things to do based on neighborhood or region. And so we would just go through and save all of them into our phones.
Nice.
And then Google would have those. So we would look where we were on a map, or you bring the book with you and you say like, oh, where am I?
Yeah.
And then you see what's around you, and it's like you don't have to plan your day out necessarily.
Right.
If you have one of these books with you, because you'll see where you are and what's around you to do.
So this book also has like little maps. It even has like public transportation schedules. So it can be like, this bus comes 20 minutes every minute, except for the weekends, which could be like once every 3 hours. You know, have these very candid accounts, just real life, like somebody's talking to you, and it's great.
What I like about them is at the front of the book, there's a lot of useful information, like easy phrases in the language, the vernacular. What's cool is they'll kind of explain culture a little bit. So like, for example, for the London one, it was like, hey, Londoners are polite, but they don't really talk to strangers. So like, if you're on a train and no one's really chatty with you, like, it's not like you've done something wrong. They just don't do it.
They'll tell it like it is. Yeah.
It's such a good inside tip, because the silent two-bride home is a classic that confuses travelers.
Right. But we were ready for it. It really helps. And we actually talked about this podcast on our If You Like Top 10 podcast. If you want to learn more about these books and who made them, there's a Lonely Planet episode on how I built this, and it's really good.
Wow.
Highly recommend that if you're interested.
One little quick anecdote about, there's many quick anecdotes, but this one is the first one that comes to mind about Lonely Planet, how accurate it is. For some reason, again, I apologize, listeners, Thailand keeps coming up, but whatever. So
we are not sponsored by Thailand tourism.
So
visit Thailand.
I was on this very remote island in Thailand called Koh Jum, which the only way to get to it is by another island like Koh Phi Phi. Then you have to take a 45-minute longboat, which you're like 6 inches above the ocean water. I get there 45 minutes in, and the reason why I went is it says you can get like a $5 or $10 like Villa Cabana thing with AC overlooking the water. It's not a beautiful beach necessarily, but it's a secluded one. And but unfortunately, the only way you get there from the water taxi to this area where there's some of these villas is you have to ask a local for a ride on the back of their motorcycle. And they said it's a big, it's a town that revels in their existence or something along those lines. So don't be surprised if a few of them had a few too many beers.
Oh my God. Okay.
Oh my God.
So I read about this like 2-3 days before. I was like, okay, that's like somebody, whatever.
Yeah.
So I get off and I like wave somebody down and I get on the back of this guy's motorcycle and just grab it on. And we're trying to have a conversation with him awkwardly over his shoulder.
Right.
and he burps.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, having a good time. And he does like puts his thumb up with his pinky out, like having a few too many, and gives me like a little surfer signal, like he's been partying all day.
Oh
and
my
I gave him a fist bump.
You really are an adventurer.
What a deeply alarming interaction.
But
you were ready for it.
I was ready for it. Thank you, Lonely Planet.
Wow.
So, yeah. Thailand.
Visit Thailand.
All right.
Stay for the drunken motorcycle rides.
Yeah. We are not sponsored by Lonely Planet, but I do just personally recommend them. They're great.
Yeah.
Yes, I highly agree.
Okay, that brings us to number 4.
Number 4. Plain and simple. Street food.
Street food.
Yeah. You know what? You're going to have to convince me of what numbers 1, 2, and 3 are, because street food is such a key, and I think that the anti-street food stance, or at least the street food ignorance of our older counterparts, is such a limiting thing that has prevented many past generations from fully enjoying cities. Like you with Thailand, I think my London references are many because I spent a semester there studying abroad. But I cannot tell you how many times I heard, "Oh, the food there is gross," right? No! The food there is fantastic. Most of the really good food happens to be street food.
Yeah.
It's great! And it's cheaper, and it's fun, and it's good for traveling. Like, usually when I travel somewhere, so let's say I'm going for 4 days to a city, I will sit in a restaurant once. Is typical. I'll like sit down for a dinner one time. The rest of it's street food, it's sandwiches,
Dang
coffee
right,
shops.
man. Preach, brother.
Yeah, I'm so with you.
Also, I feel like you kind of get a better taste for like what authentic food is like in a lot of ways. Because, for example, when we were in Malta visiting my family, like you're not going to find pastizzi in like a nice restaurant, but you will find it. And that's like the traditional, like everyone knows it, like Maltese food. And if you were averse to eating in like a small kind of like street food setting, you just weren't going to have it. And so that's an experience you're going to miss out on. And it's a vital one.
Pastizzi?
Pastizzi. They're just like flaky, kind of like doughy kind of pastries. They're not sweet. They're savory, and they're filled with ricotta cheese and peas usually.
Okay.
I'll make you some sometime. They're great.
It has to be on the sidewalk, though. Otherwise, it doesn't count.
Well, yeah, it's like a in your house thing to make, or you get it on the street, or like they might have them in a cafe. But you're not gonna like sit down and eat a pastizzi with a fork and a knife. You're just gonna throw it at your face.
Which is.
And I feel like there's
it's peasant food.
Yeah, peasant food.
It's the best food.
And I feel like there's a food like that everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. This is a great pick.
Okay.
Especially in Thailand.
Visit Thailand.
I'm waving a Thai flag right now. Oh boy.
Do you want to go through your honorable mentions real fast? Rapid fire.
Yes, because I think this is the rare scenario where the honorable mentions here work. Because Kyle, I don't know about you, but I'm guessing we're not going to do much rearranging because this is such a perfect list.
Come on, don't do me like that. I think there's a lot of opportunity from these honorable mentions to scooch to the top because of the ambiguity of my rules with concepts and hard-hitting facts here.
That's fair, but I also like when we have guests on that we tend to do less rearranging because we've talked about this before. The list is better for its specificity to that person. So I'm still going to say I think it's unlikely that we will, but I appreciate what you're saying here.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Honorable mentions. Quickly. Travel plug converter.
Aha.
Oh, good one.
Yep.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I have not found it that necessary. I think I brought it a few times, but almost every place has an Americanized plug, which spoils the crap out of me. Same thing with like how honored and privileged I feel that the rest of the world typically does speak English. Actually,
Yeah.
it's and I feel pretty darn spoiled about it.
Oh yeah.
So it's the same type of concept.
Tough to be Croatian, my man.
All right, number 2. I broke all the rules on this one, but I think it's so important. It's such a big travel craze right now that everyone needs to know about this. Iceland.
Iceland specifically.
No, well,
It's actually pronounced Thailand, Kyle.
so
Good. That's pretty
when
good.
it comes to Iceland, boys and girls, I strongly suggest, just like your travel plug, you stay ignorant and you stay on American time for a very specific reason. You should travel to Iceland during the summer because Iceland is so far up there towards the North Pole that the sun technically does set, but when it sets for about 4 or 5 hours a day in July, the entire sky is like bright red and purple. So what Iceland is everyone there is tourists that travel and camp. So they're all bunkering down for the night around 10 o'clock when the sky is bright red. And it's the most beautiful thing, but none of the national parks close. So we stayed on American time and we would show up to these national parks like the Black Sand Beach, like the Highlands, all these glaciers, and start at 10 and start our hikes from 10 until 1 or 2 a.m., have the entire thing to ourselves, and then crash around 3 a.m., wake up at 10 a.m., drive to the next location.
And you're still on American time, so you weren't like tired or anything?
Not at all.
Wow, what a great idea.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic idea. And this is a meta, I'm going to go with a meta tip, which is, from my experience with Iceland, take advice from people whose travel experiences you want to imitate. Because the on-the-ground experience is so important, and you giving that advice is awesome because you're somebody whose travel experiences I'd want to imitate. So I went to Iceland a year and a half ago, and right before I went, somebody who I really respect as a traveler, this was a coworker of mine, said, "Oh, but here's the big thing. Make sure you have a car."
Yep.
And that is exactly the kind of thing I would never do.
Right.
Ever. I would never rent a car. Ugh, gross.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But when I got there, I realized that if we were just staying in the city, I'd have been bored out of my damn mind.
It's a great city. It's a great city, but
it's a great city. But what I associated with Iceland was the countryside, the black sand beach, the glaciers, the waterfalls. And if I hadn't listened to somebody who came before me, I would have really missed out. So in hearing your advice about Iceland, I'm reminded of how important it is when you're going somewhere unfamiliar like in Iceland. Really take the opinions of somebody you care, you trust seriously.
All right.
Awesome.
Rapid fire here real quick. So bring a lock and use it if you're in hostels and dorm settings. I've had stuff stolen.
Yeah, good call.
Even though that is controversial and counterintuitive to another point that's going to be coming up here on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Or if you're my dad, bring a fanny pack and keep your valuables close to your groin.
Oh.
Yes.
If you're going to be doing a long trip, like 2 weeks or more, you don't need to overpack. There's always a way to do laundry. Always.
That's a great one.
That's a really good one.
Next one. Be nice to your airline attendant. I'm actually surprised about how many free drinks I've gotten throughout the years, or just completely unprompted, both men and women. Just be nice.
It doesn't. I will say this.
I want to. Yeah.
I think we're about to make the same point. What are you saying, Mike?
Well, I was just going to say, I think to take this point and expand it more broadly, just remember what your co-passengers in life, but certainly in your travels, are there for, and consider what you can possibly get out of being a dick.
Yeah.
Like, just try to think what can be helpful here if I'm a dick. How is this going to get better for me if I bitch about my seat?
It's a very good point. I wish more people would consider. We weren't going to say the same thing. I was going to say the viewers can't see this at home, but Kyle's an extremely attractive individual.
Oh, geez.
And that probably has something to do with why he's getting free drinks on airplanes.
That is true. And it is interesting that you specify male and female because you're a damn fox, and any attendant would be willing to give you a drink.
Jeez.
Anyways.
You're a handful, boys. All right. This has some overlap with a previous one we've touched on, but depending on your personality, check or don't check your primary health insurance. So when I went to Costa Rica, for instance, I didn't know until after the fact that surfing was considered an extreme sport, and extreme sports were not covered domestically or internationally. And yeah, so it took a little bit there under the health insurance plan. Now, knowing that, I wish I never heard that. Because now the next time I'm going to be surfing, I'm going to be thinking about that. Again, probably going to end up in the court of law here, so let's just bleep a few of these out. On a longer trip, don't be afraid to take a rest day.
Well,
that's a great one.
It's also great because depending on where you are, like, you can get a lot. It's not like you're going to be sitting in your hotel taking a rest day. Like, you can take a rest day and still enjoy where you're at. Like, during our honeymoon, we spent one entire day on the beach, but we were in Positano, like the best place ever to have a rest day.
Right.
So you can accomplish a couple of goals here, but don't be afraid to slow down.
Right. Right. And, overall concept, just be keen and observe your surroundings. I've learned a lot and just been able to observe and grow as a person and be more receptive, both positively and negatively, and pick up little cues by just observing.
Yeah.
Don't just look.
Don't just look.
See.
Yes.
It's what our good friend Ra's al Ghul once said. Always remember to mind your surroundings.
Yep. Don't sacrifice your footing for a killing blow.
No, never. 'Cause that's
Sorry,
especially if you're in Iceland.
Sorry, we're rolling deep into Batman Begins quotes now, so please stop us.
Yep. Continue.
All right, we're gonna hop to number 3, are we?
Let's do it.
Please.
Let's do this.
Okay, back to practical tips here in a slight combo. When it comes to booking flights, I will swear by skiplagged.com and possibly far more importantly, Scott's Cheap Flights.
I have heard of this website from a number of people who all like swear by it and like probably have it tattooed on their body somewhere. Like,
have you seen my new one actually?
Oh wow.
That was his butt for the listeners. And as many a flight attendant can tell you, it's a nice butt.
I feel like what I know of Scott's is that it's just like they don't give a fuck where you like think you want to go.
Right.
They're just like, yo, this flight is cheap.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, I'm going there, I guess.
Right.
Which fits your personality very well.
I may actually need to forward them to spam pretty soon because it's too distracting and too tempting.
It's problematic.
It is so problematic.
You're like, fuck, I could go to Thailand again.
Yeah.
Flights to Thailand are cheap.
It's a beautiful flag, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. The final 2. We're going back to kind of concepts here with some intricacies associated with the sub-concepts.
Okay.
So number 2 is solo travel, or if you have a spouse, travel with your spouse in cities and cultures that are vastly different than our own. However, if you're interested in doing like a landscape, like an Iceland trip, I encourage you to bring more people. It's better to bring people and experience landscapes in nature and have those memories with others. The reason is because when you're in like a cityscape and there's so much hustle and bustle. There's so much observing that you need to do that if you're too so focused on appeasing your friend or just, in a more positive light, joking around with your friend, enjoying their company, you're not going to be able to observe that amazing bartering interaction at the market that's going on to your left, right? Or, you're juggling like somebody's, if they have a headache or whatever, you can spin it good and bad. But when it comes to cityscapes, I highly recommend keeping the group immensely down to 1 or 2 max.
It's funny. This is advice that I have never actually thought through, but which I've definitely taken into practice in my own travels. I have definitely found that the group appeasement piece of a big group travel is great and manageable when it's at a place where things are a little bit more manageable. Like I'm just reiterating what you're saying, but I guess what I'm saying is I've been there. Totally agreed. Really new places are they scale up exponentially in difficulty when you have too many people. So totally with you.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And it's pretty easy to make the direct comparison because when we were studying abroad, we were oftentimes traveling in very large groups. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my travel lately has been with Allegis where it's just 2 of us.
Sure.
And
yeah,
both experiences are amazing in their own way, but you're right in that you can kind of have a more focused experience if the logistics of travel are a smaller percentage of your time.
Sure.
Right?
Fewer toilet breaks. Just practically speaking, fewer people have got to take a dump.
Yeah, I mean, that's like 62% of your time right there. So
a lot of dumps.
Yeah, certainly my time.
Yeah, street food coming back at you.
Street food.
Mexican street corn and then some Thai coffee.
That Thai coffee goes right through you.
Yeah.
All right. Is it time for number 1?
I think we've arrived at number 1.
All right. Kind of
travel with Kyle from work.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a carryover, and I'm open to this future debate, and I hope to vigorously debate it with you.
That's why we're here.
But I just said wing it in all capital letters. So I think in general you should have a highlight / baseline / fallback plan, but you need to allow yourself to get lost within reason. You just make new friends with the hostel situation. We touched on that. You need to change your itinerary. You don't necessarily need to, but I encourage you to alter your itinerary based off recommendations you get, both near and far. And just give yourself time to breathe. It goes to the relax thing. And just embrace the chaos of travel. Partly, maybe that's really number 1 is embrace the chaos of travel. And that may give some people anxiety, but to me, it invigorates the heck out of me, considering I have like an engineering-oriented job where it needs to be very structured. Everything needs, all the I's need to be dotted, T's need to be crossed. And you know what? If things go awry, it's part of the fun.
Yeah. I can understand why that would be invigorating and kind of a rush and why you would enjoy it. This is the first time on this list that I disagree because, and I wish, I wish that I could see it from your perspective.
Yeah.
And I logically can, I understand all the benefits and you don't have to convince me, but I just I think it ultimately, and maybe this is something that can be learned, but the way I am right now, it's like you said, it just causes me, and Allegis and I are kind of on the same page. It just causes us too much anxiety to go into a day or a trip with nothing planned.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that stems from the fear that if you don't have something planned, there's potential that something just doesn't come your way and you don't find something. And then there's this just deep set fear that you're going to end up wasting your time on a trip.
If you bring in the factor of time, so I've had a lot of experience with extended trips. I didn't mean to cut you off by any means.
Nope.
You nailed it. The older I get and the more condensed my trips get, the more this anxiety becomes a factor. So if I'm on a 4-day quick hitter trip, I'm going to be more planned than I am on a 3-week trip for sure. for sure. I started off, I did my first trip was like a 2 week trip, I want to say, through Central and South America with friends. We planned everything to the T. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to do China and, you guessed it, Thailand. and then we did South America and like a whole bunch of different iterations at another time. And it was, that's when I started to really enjoy the winging it portion.
Well,
when I had more time.
Well, because at that length, being so regimented with your schedule actually just sounds exhausting.
It's super exhausting. Yeah. Yeah.
You can even get that on like a 10-day trip if you're really trying to plan it all the way out. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's important to find a balance, but I would not say any of our trips have been ones where we've winged it, and that's something I think I'd like to do more of, but it's just hard. Like, especially because like I'm kind of the same way. Like we work in engineering, and I think finance is probably the same kind of way with you, Mike. Like there's kind of a comfort in knowing what you're doing.
Sure.
And it's kind of hard to break out of that pattern sometimes. How do you plan your trips, Mike, typically? Like to what degree?
I would say, so especially in recent years, my trips have been with Caroline, and I think what we like to do is pick a list of a couple restaurants, a couple sites, a couple this, that we'd love to see or we'd love to try to do. And then we'll zone out days. So let's say we're in a particular city. We'll say, all right, so Monday we're going to try to be in this part of the city. Tuesday we're going to try to be in this part of the city. And Wednesday we'll be in this part. And then we try to hit one or two of the things from that area. And we kind of let the rest come. So we tend to block out where we'll be geographically on a given day, and then see what from our list of wanna-dos kind of comes our way. So I think we're somewhere in the middle.
No, I think,
It seems like a really happy medium.
Yeah, really
like you
nice
kind of
medium.
plot out a couple of major points, but exactly how you get between them and what you do once you're in that region is up for improvisation. That's great.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So I'd like to end on one little Easter egg of specific tidbittery.
Yeah.
That's a word I like.
Yeah, it's like ass baggery.
that may, in this quick little story may seem absurd to most people, but once you're in the situation, you realize all the positives associated with winging it here. I think it outweighs and will open everyone's horizon. So if you ever are fortunate enough to make it to Cuba, find a way in, sneak through Cancun, whatever, go through a cruise, whatever, right? So I was fortunate enough to go, about a year or so before it was like semi-legal. I think they kind of closed it up. But you can, if you want to go tomorrow, you can still find a way. Go to Cuba, pay off the customs agent, you'll be fine. So,
Legally.
We do not endorse.
Once you get to Havana, they have these things called casa particulars, which are just, these row houses, just like you see in all these Cuban pictures. Sometimes they're far more run down than you'd like to see in an American setting, for instance. But they have a little blue sign, and I think it says particular on them. It's maybe 6 inches by 6 inches or so. What that means is that they are certified by their federal government, and they have air conditioning, a little mini fridge, and a private room with a lock and key. And that means that they're legally allowed to have guests there, including internationals. And it's like essentially like an Airbnb, but true, authentic Cuban style. So that's how I actually had exclusively all of my accommodations in Cuba. I would go around in Havana and knock on people's doors and introduce myself. And they would invite me in even if they didn't have room, they'd invite me in for tea. I'd get to hang out with their family. And then I'd stay with them for a few days. And Cuba is actually one of the safest countries in the world. So it was the most authentic, beautiful experience of winging it I think you could possibly have. And it really wasn't that hard, especially if you do your research about the practicals and know that it's safe and all this stuff. Embracing it, just know the basics and then just, take your risks in stride.
Wow. That's a really good example of where winging, and I'm sure on every trip you've ever taken, there's an example of a time when you didn't have something structured, and it led to something meaningful and memorable. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, that's something that we'll definitely try to keep in mind as we go forward and continue our travels, because I'm not to say that we don't do it at all, but there's probably room for a little more spontaneity.
Yeah.
then.
Totally. And Kyle, I don't know about you, but I cannot imagine a better anecdote to conclude this top 10 list on. That's so perfect.
Yeah. And it really, like, if you didn't have a sense of what kind of person Kyle was before this one, it really hammers it home. Like what you are seeking and what you get out of traveling. That's a perfect antidote to kind of describe that.
It's a great picture of poise and openness and just kind of getting out what you give in.
Yeah. And
Well said.
I know that you were looking forward to the vigorous debate, and we had a couple of points here to.
No, we can't debate you. We can't. This is so good, and it's so specific to a kind of traveling that Kyle and I want to learn about. We don't do this. We want to learn about this. That, I don't know. We can't debate.
I will say though that I see what you mean. Like some of these honorable mentions, like could be as far up, on your list as like top 3, but I think it's definitely a personal thing where you might rank these. And I am especially interested in memorializing and documenting the way that you have them ordered. Is that okay with you, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. Is that all right with you, Kyle?
I'm defeated, but I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
Next time, here's what you do. I got some advice for you. Next time, do worst baseball nicknames or something. And that will elicit great debate from us.
That's true.
Fair enough.
We promise.
So a couple of thank yous. The first thank you is thank you for putting this together because you clearly put a lot of time into it and we appreciate that. I'm being serious. Like the fact that you took the time to do this.
It's very meaningful.
On top of that, so Kyle texted me maybe like 2 weeks ago or something and just said like, guys, I've been listening to this podcast a lot and I really like it and I want to come on. And that is like the best possible feeling that we can get from doing this podcast is hearing that someone is listening to it and enjoying it and then volunteering and just asking or basically saying like, I would love to be a part of this. That's extremely flattering. So thank you for listening and enjoying it and wanting to be a part of it. It really does mean a lot.
It's my pleasure. And to be fair, for the record, I was just trying to pawn off some of my ideas onto you guys.
We're the benefactors here.
Oh, absolutely. And so is, of course, the wonderful, wonderful nation of Thailand.
Yes. Probably the best country I can think of.
Are we going to cue the Thai national anthem right now?
Maybe instead of our theme music, I'll play us out to the Thai national anthem.
Yeah, please see if you can get that.
All right, then. Kyle, before we go then, would you like to recite to us your top 10, what did we settle on? Adventurous tips for adventure travel? Or
Adventurous tips for adventurous trips, I think.
Adventure tips for adventure trips.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the top 10. The definitive top 10
The
list.
definitive top 10. Number 10, be the last aboard. Maximize that cheap ticket. Get every last cent out of that thing. And more. Number 9, get a travel credit card. Number 8, stay in hostels. Just do it. It's awesome.
Yep.
Number 7, research the practicalities. Okay? Number 6, bring a journal. Or write in your phone. Whatever you want to do. Just write.
Such a good one.
Bring and use a journal. Because I bet a lot of people bring journals.
Yeah.
And then don't use them.
Number 5, Lonely Planet. Expand that book collection. I've got like 20 at home. It's great. If you need one, give me a shout. Get my contact info. Whatever. Number 4, street food. I'm still alive. Mike's still alive.
So into
Kyle's still alive.
We're here.
Get your brains out every once in a while. It's good for you.
Number 3, Scott's Cheap Flights and Skip Lagged. I didn't even explain Skip Lagged, but just Google it. It'll make a lot of sense. It basically means if you're trying to go to Miami, Florida, and you're flying from Chicago to Miami and it goes through New York, and Chicago to Miami happens to be $300, and Chicago to New York is $400, you'll buy a ticket to Chicago to Miami and just get off the flight at New York.
Oh.
Does that make sense? Did I explain that right?
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So that's
impressive logistics, but that's cool.
Yeah, that's all I do for booking flights.
Huh.
Yeah. I don't use any other site besides that.
Interesting.
Number 2, know when to travel solo or with your spouse, and just know when to say no. We didn't really use that phrase.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
no means no, guys. All right, and number 1, just wing it. Just wing it.
Be adventurous. That's right. Is that kind of what it comes down to?
Embrace that. Yeah.
Adventure is out there.
Yeah. Don't wish you could. Just wing it.
I love that. Thank you again, Kyle. Before we go, I would like to also thank our dear friend Kevin McLeod. His stank was all over this podcast.
It was
in the
potent.
intro. Really stanky.
Yeah.
I would also like to thank our dear friend Erin, who of course crafted the fine artwork for this podcast. If you're interested in seeing more of her stuff, you can do so at Sant Design on Instagram.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to say. I'd like to say thank you to Caroline Labranti, who manages our social media. She is doing a medium job on our Twitter, but doing a great job on our Instagram, Facebook. Those are Top 10 KM. 10 is spelled out TEN. If you have thoughts, feedback, you want to come on the podcast and give us the old what for, that's top10km@gmail.com. Shoot us a note. Another thing I'd like to say is that while I'm guessing you're listening on a podcast app, if you want another one, we are available at the Apple Podcast app, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, pretty much wherever podcasts can be found. And I have one last thing I want to say as a little Easter egg for those of you listening still. Today, my nephew Sal walked.
Yeah.
Got footage of him walking today. So...
Wow.
I couldn't not say that in a recorded format where I can record it. I am an uncle of a human who walks.
Congratulations, buddy.
So that's all I have.
That smile.
Thank you. I did it.
Beaming.
That's all I have to say in my section.
Congratulations to you and young Sal.
Yes. Thank you.
I can't say his name, can I? Congratulations to your young nephew as well.
No, that's fine. You can say Sal. His name is Sal. Salvatore.
All right. Thank you again, Kyle. It's been a pleasure. To you, Michael, I say good day, and I'll see you next week. How's that?
Kyle, it has been a real treat. You guys are both wonderful, and I learned a lot from both of you, especially you, Kyle.
All right. Buongiorno.
It's a pleasure, guys. Thanks so much.
Bonjour. Peace.